And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Delighted to have you here. I'm just having a look through some of the names. We've got Alex and Ellen and Joy. Joyce, I beg your pardon. Yeah, from Canada. Lovely to see you. And Anna and Jurgen and Don and Nikki. People around the world come to see us for the last session today. It's a little bit sad because there's been some fabulous stuff. Yeah, 15 sessions, coming up to 15 sessions on the platform over the last couple of weeks have been super. I'm really looking forward to this one as well with Stella. We started off talking about AI. That was the first session we had. You remember Egler was talking about AI and why we can't just rely on the technology anymore. We've sort of like gone full circle. We've been talking about audio and video and evaluation and where the future is going to be. And now I think we're in a really interesting place where we need to pin down some of this stuff on AI, which is why I'm so glad that I've got this session to chair with Stella. Stella Lee is our speaker today. If you don't know, she's a bit of a polymath. She's outstanding speaker on EdTech and AI. She's worked as in a range of industries, range of sectors, United Nations, UNICEF, and she's just really a great person to sit and listen to, a really smart person. I'm really delighted that I know Stella. I've seen the slides, so I know what's coming, and I know that you're going to enjoy this session. So, as always with all of these sessions, excuse me, interaction is key. So please make sure you're using the chat. So I'm going to take a drink of water. Look at that. Interaction is key. Make sure that you're putting your comments in the chat. Please make sure you ask plenty of questions. I've got a few questions that I know that I want to ask Stella about this stuff, but I'm really keen to find out what questions you have. Stella, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew, for such a nice introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, no matter where you're dialing in from. I am actually based in Calgary, Canada, so it's morning for me. It's -2 here, a little bit cold. But anyway, I can't see your comments, but Andrew has so graciously agreed to copy and paste them in my view. So if you have any comments, questions, please feel free. I'm very informal in my presentation. I want it to be a conversation for us to discuss and share. So my session is on developing AI literacy for L&D professionals. So just to, I know AI has been a hot topic in the past couple of years, and I wanted to start with why should we care about AI literacy? Just to use a couple examples to illustrate a point. So can you guys see my slide deck okay? And are you able to see the image okay? Andrew, I'm relying on you to get audience response to me. I want to start with a little exercise here. Have you heard of you might have heard a couple weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, this Hurricane Helene and then Milton that hits the east coast of the United States, and it caused a lot of damages and a lot of images that surfaced on the web, including this one. Now, did you think this is real or is it AI generated? And if you think it's AI generated, like, can you tell me why? What are the reasons? I give you like a minute to think about it. Anyone? Any take?
Through now, because there's about 20-second delay from us starting the question and people coming through, and so I put the question in the chat as well. Is this a real image? AI.
But why?
Why? How
do you know? How do you know?
AI generated because Disney didn't flood, says Kevin. It's too perfect, says Nikki. It looks like more of a painting, which I think is interesting. It looks like a painting. It's not typical scenario, says Karina. Sandra's saying it's AI, but could be drawn by someone. AI, says Helen, because there's no wet legs. And surely Disneyland would have been closed. Sam says AI, and it looks like Pluto's got too many fingers.
Good spot. Yes, yes. All
Yeah,
these are
AI
correct. Wow.
generated, because where would Goofy get such a big life preserver? Pluto's legs don't look wet. People are walking on water in the background. The splash doesn't match the movement. It looks airbrushed. It looks a bit cheesy. So people are sort of like going back and going, do you know what? Don't think this is real.
I am impressed with all the observations. So yeah, first of all, we have to really pay more attention now, right? This is always like images like this has always been around. It's always been Dr. Photoshop's been around since what the 1980s. But you guys are correct. Really keen eyes there. So first of all, yeah, like what's the source? Did Disley say that they were actually flooded? No, that was one of the issue, right? And if you look at the image, yeah, it's too airbrush. It's too perfect. Especially you look at the skins of the child's very smooth. I don't know if you can see it, clearly. I know it's a small screen here, but if you zoom in, if you look at the actual image, like the skin is too smooth. And yes, you can also see the people in the background. The water level is not even. If you look at the people on the left-hand side, the water is kind of ankle deep, and the other side it's further up on the Samson's diamond. The UL has fake in it. Yes, correct. And also Pluto's hands. You can see 4 or 5 fingers there, and traditionally Disney characters only have 3 or less, or 3 or 4 fingers, because I didn't know about this until I actually looked into this image. It's that they would save time animating the fingers are difficult to animate. So the less finger you have, it's easy to animate that. So they never have that many fingers, with Disney characters. So these are some of the things you can spot for a fake image. Very good job. I'm going to skip this one. This is also fake. And this one, it's a little girl holding a puppy crying. Do you think this is real or fake? Again, this is what Hurricane Milton. This image actually was the most shared. I think it's one of the top shared image. It gone viral. Why did you think this is fake? I'm going to tell you this is fake, but why do you think it's fake? Can you spot some of the problems here? Again, I know there's a 20-second delay, so I'll wait.
I love that Samson picked up that the URL had fake in it.
I know. So it's suddenly becoming really sunny in my room. I'm gonna have to maybe turn on some lights and see if that helps. Can you guys see me better?
Same question for everybody. So why is this image fake? What is it about this image that makes this image fake? Jurgen's come in and says the skin above her eyes looks a bit peculiar.
Yes.
Distortion in the face, the skin color
Mm-hmm.
versus the arms doesn't match. Her hands aren't quite right. Her eyebrows look too adult. It looks a bit perfect, more of a painting, airbrush, and her hands seem too big. Skin color on the arms and hands are a different tone to her face, says Anne. The hands and arms are very smooth and clear. Skin tone varies, says Steve. AI,
Wow.
would the child be crying as he's in Pluto's arms?
Good. Yeah. No. Thank you. Wow. That's very deep. Like, I should. I can do this all day long. It's to me, it's fascinating that there's just so many. You can spot so many differences, right? And you don't know it from this presentation, but there were multiple images of this little girl being circulated. So even comparing the different images in terms of consistency, because in one image, the puppy looked different. Like it's obviously a different puppy being photoshopped into or AI generated into it. So yes, these are all correct. You guys are discerning consumers. So I hope that this illustrates why we need AI literacy, because all these images are really flooding our inbox. And you might argue this misinformation and fake images has been around for years, right? Propaganda has been around for centuries. So what's different now? So with AI, I think there's several differences. First of all, it's the sheer volume of images that that are flooding us. According to this website, every Pixel Journal, it say that over 15 billion AI images has been created in just 1 year, and that's more than photos has been taken in the first 150 years in the photographic history. So think about how huge that is, and think about the volume. Like like we looked at one image and it's taken us a few minutes to unpack and understand why it's fake. But if you get this flooding in every day, like it's exhausting to have to look at that every day and try to understand if this is real or fake. So the sheer volume makes a difference. And the second point I wanted to make is that access to tools, it used to be, if you use Photoshop, you need to have certain skills to doctor photos and create fake images. But now, of course, like the most obvious ones are Canva and DALL-E 3, Leonardo.ai, and Firefly. But if you look at this website, I don't know if you guys know about, there's an AI for that. It's an AI tool repository, and there's a few of these out there. But just this site alone, there's 999 AI image generation tools, and many of them are freemium, or you can try it out. So the access, it's becoming like so easy. Anybody without any skill set can access to tool and generate thousands of imageries that are not real. So just think about how that is going to impact us. And then there's the degree of realism. I don't know, have you guys seen this Pope Francis in this very stylish puffy jacket? Again, this image gone viral, and there's multiple versions of it. It just looks so real. AI can easily create very realistic, very convincing looking imageries, and so that makes it, I know you guys are very good at spotting the difference, but perhaps people that are not as informed about AI and as informed about these fake photos, at first glance it's very convincing. And finally, the type of social media platforms we have, they don't help, right? They actually, not just that there's easy distribution, but they incentivize, they encourage you to share, regardless if it's misinformation or actual facts. It's really interesting research at Yale University. I posted the link here to say social media platforms actually incentivize people. It's usually spread by a smaller number of, it's usually like 15 to 20% of the people keep spreading the same. They're the one that spread misinformation, but they are so, the reach is so vast, and they keep spreading different misinformation. So and platform X, formerly known as Twitter, doesn't help, right? Because they don't vet through misinformation like they used to. And TikTok, this plethora of Russian websites, for example, that help spread misinformation as well without fact checking or without any vigorous verification process. So these few factors just make it that much worse nowadays. So hopefully the examples before illustrate why we need AI literacy more urgently than before, just because it is something that we deal with daily, and also because the advances of AI really, as it's getting more sophisticated, we also need to keep up with the pace of change and be a smarter consumer about content, but also as a smarter educator to help other people understand what does it mean by AI literate.
Awesome. Stella, before you go on to the next part, there's no questions coming through from the audience. There's lovely comments, people talking about how they're blown their mind by the number of images and so on. I've got a question, though, relating to the previous slide and talking about some of the social stuff. Is there something to do with a dopamine fix? And somebody picked this up as a comment. Is it our desire to want to see something, which is causing us to want to use these tools more and more, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, there's even research to study why social media is addictive, and it is these platforms like Facebook of the world is designed to make you addicted to keep scrolling, keep commenting, keep liking posts, right? The sheer fact that people like your post, that's addictive. That gives you a hit. So these platforms are designed specifically to get you hooked. So that doesn't help, especially if you think about teenagers that have very little self-control, that has a lot more impulses. That makes it worse. So that's correct, Andrew, in the audience response about that. Do they have anything else to add to that, or that was more a comment?
That was more a comment, and it was my interest because I'm fascinated in this stuff as well. I can't help it. I work in learning development, and
Oh, yeah.
work about it and talk about it. But yeah, it was just that idea of the dopamine and that idea that we haven't even got to put any effort into producing this stuff now. This stuff can be produced literally click of a button, and then we can sit there and get all the likes and all the comments and all the positive feedback when we haven't actually done anything really.
I know. Can you guys excuse me for 30 seconds? I just need to close the curtains. It's getting suddenly very sunny here.
No
I'll be right
problem at all. No problem at all. Really keen for any questions that you've got for Stella on this. The piece we're coming to now, we're looking about data literacy and actually understanding the how we can data
Thank you. I
AI
shouldn't be
literacy.
complaining about this, really.
No, don't worry. And how we can develop AI literacy and what the gaps are and where some of the gaps might be. So please, any questions you've got, please make sure that you put them into the chat. Back to you, Stella.
Yeah. Oh no, thank you for that. So that's kind of my emphasis in creating an AI literacy framework, because I want it to be a broader conversation. It's not just about the conversation about AI is about how to use the tools. What are the tools? Where do we get them? How do we use them? But as you can see, AI literacy needs to be a bigger conversation. It's not just about the usage of tools, but also we need to be intentional in developing competencies that we can critically understand, comprehend, to utilize, to evaluate, to collaborate, and also to contribute to AI technologies. And by contribution, I don't mean you need to be a computer scientist to create new machine learning models, but contribute as in, well, adding to the critical conversation like we had about fake imageries, adding into perhaps the development of policies and guidelines, and contribute in terms of educating others about what do we need to watch out for, what are the limitations of AI. So that's the definition I have. It's to be this very inclusive view on take on AI. As I see it, it's not just technologists that needs to drive that. I think we as citizens all have a role to play in driving AI and how it develops in our society. So this is the framework, and it's been evolving. I developed this almost 2 years ago now. When ChatGPT first came out and it became all the rage in, oh my God, it's 2 years now. And so shortly after that, I've been asked to do an AI workshop for educators. And as I was putting together this workshop, I thought, okay, it's missing a framework that we can kind of have a shared understanding of what this technology is about and how do we approach it. So initially, I have 7 what I call key areas of competency or key area of knowledge. So then it has since changed. I've gotten a lot of feedback from people. Thanks for those of you that provided feedback. And it's still very much a work in progress as the technology changed. My thoughts on this continue to change. So I've added assessment as a separate area, because I think we need to have a conversation about that, separate from the rest of the areas as well. So the framework is available on my website. So if you wanted to look at it in more details, feel free to look at it. But I wanted to go through each key area with you in a little bit more detail. And feel free to just jump in if you have any questions, or if you thought about, oh, I also have experience understanding this. Like, I'd love to hear from you, what you think about it. So first of all, the first area I call it AI fundamentals. It's because AI is such a terribly defined term. We don't even have a shared understanding of what's AI. And a lot of times when we talk about AI, we just talk about very specifically about generative AI, which is just one of the many techniques. As you see this diagram, it illustrates AI is a collection of different techniques. And you can see ChatGPT, it's that red kind of oval in the very center of it. It's just one type. And if we talk about AI, we need to understand, like, what are the different techniques? What type of AI are you talking about? How is this different? And what are the limitations? How did this technology come about? Perhaps an exercise to illustrate this point is, you guys know about Roomba, the vacuum cleaner? It can create a map to kind of map out your house to kind of optimize the cleaning route and to avoid like stairs and kitchen corners and stuff. So did you know what type of AI it uses to do that? Again, I'll give you like a minute to respond. And Andrew, again, I have to rely on you to help me collect the. Sorry, I'm putting you to work here. Are you regretting doing my session now?
Not in the slightest. Quite the opposite. I love doing your session. Yeah, let's ask the people in the room. So, what AI does Roomba use? What type of AI is Roomba using? I know the answer to this because I've seen the next slide. So so I'm going to prompt this. So let's have a look. So we've got an answer. So first person who's had a go. Well done, Bronwyn. First person to dive in. Machine learning. Kevin May says machine learning as well. So literally a machine that's learning. So there's something about that.
It's literally the machine is learning. Yes.
The machine is learning. Yeah. What other? That's all we've got come through so far.
Okay.
That's just the two people. Do you know what? I think everyone's a bit scared.
Oh,
it's okay. Because they don't want to be wrong, Stella. Go on. Help them out. Let them know what is it.
I mean, you're among friends here, so don't be intimidated. So you guys are right about that, but it's also using what we call computer visioning, because it has a C, right? Like if you want a machine to see, the technique to use is called computer visioning. Same with driverless cars with sensors, with cameras. So this is where Roomba can visually identify objects and obstacles to avoid them or navigate around them. And so that's one technique. And of course, in terms of adapting to the route to optimize where's the best places to clean, the most efficient way to clean it, it's through machine learning algorithm, through positive reinforcement. I mean, I'm sure that they have their own proprietary technology as well within the machine learning algorithm, but we won't go into it. Just in general, I wanted to showcase AI is not just one thing, right? This is considered AI. It's the most simplistic type of AI. It's not the most sophisticated. It's not the most complex, but it's still called AI. And so you understand when we talk about AI, it's so vast. It's not always about one thing. And in fact, I don't even like the term artificial intelligence. It's giving us a false understanding of what this technology is. It's not intelligent. It's techniques. It's different techniques. There's different algorithms involved. So I don't know if you guys guessed that, but thank you for making an attempt. And yes, you're correct about machine learning. So then the second key area I wanted to talk about is data fluency. So I want to separate this from AI fundamental. Yes, AI, you need to understand the AI techniques. You need to understand like prompt engineering. How do you use it? By the way, prompt engineering is almost going away as AI becomes more sophisticated. The newest or the version that's being developed by OpenAI with ChatGPT, it could give you reasoning, well, quote unquote reasoning. So when you are writing a prompt, it actually can reason forward and backward to say, perhaps this is not what you mean, perhaps we can give you a better explanation. So prompt engineering is almost not needed now. So as these things change, we still need to understand, like, what are AI, what are the key techniques? And the other thing is AI models are trained on data, a lot of data, right? So we need to understand data as a separate thing, because depending on where you scrape the data, depending on where you source them, they could be biased, they could be incomplete, it could be irrelevant, it could not be representational because you only scrape, a section of the data and not the complete data set. So we need to understand data to understand AI. And also from what we can do perspective, we also need to be actively involved in the conversation about data governance. And an example here I use is these AI detectors, these detectors that, to identify if, say, a student is cheating by using AI to write essays, are actually biased against non-native English speakers because their writing style kind of similar to people that are using AI to write their essays. So they often get flagged and say they actually are cheating, when in fact it's just because the English is not native. And so it's biased against people that are not native speakers. And because the source of the data is not representational of people that don't speak English natively. So that is a problem, right? And again, if you wanted to read more about that, I post the link in there. So that's data fluency as a key area. And the third key area, as we talked about earlier with the fake imageries, is we really need to be critically thinking and fact checking about pretty much everything now. AI makes a lot of mistakes. It has disinformation. There's also people that perhaps intentionally spread misinformation. It can hallucinate. So we need to understand the limitations and challenges of AI. Can you guys see the example I posted? I just realized it might be very, very small. This is AI overview by Google. So when a question being asked to say, well, how many rocks do I need to eat per day? It actually say 1 rock per day is the recommended amount. Sorry, I can hear some noises in the background. Is that a comment? No?
Sorry, background noise. Apologies. Yeah,
No,
the slide. Yeah, the slides are. It's a little bit small to read. The question for rock. Oh yeah, Kevin's picked it up actually. Yeah, I'll have a rock for dinner tonight then, because it has come up in there, so it's possible to read. When we did this, I saw these slides. I actually went and I asked 4 different AI platforms about the same question. How many rocks shall I have for dinner, or shall I eat? And they've all come back and gone, it's probably not a good idea to have them now. So we talk about learning. The systems are learning. Maybe we don't have to do that. That we don't have to eat rocks, perhaps.
Well, I mean, this gone viral, right? So I think it's in Google's interest to fix it quickly. So anything that make it to the internet this way, I'm sure they fix it quickly. But then who knows? Maybe you can ask them different questions. Like instead of rocks, you can ask, should I run with scissors, and see what it says. I think it's important to test the limitations. I think it's important to check where the sources are coming from. As somebody mentioned earlier, the link has fake in it. That's probably not a good one. You also wanted to check and see if the source is, is this a reliable source? Is it somebody's opinion? Is this been vetted as well? So a lot to think about in terms of critical thinking as a key area that we need to develop. So the fourth one, I put diverse AI applications, particularly for maybe because I'm in L&D and maybe I see it as a problem within our profession, but perhaps this applies to other professions as well. Is that we tend to look at what's happening in our own profession and not look past that. We often have conversations among ourselves about education and learning and performance support, but we don't talk about what's AI happening in elsewhere. And it's important. Why? Because as you know, in the realm of education, things happen quite slowly. A lot of ed tech products happen about 3 to 4 years after consumer grade products has been used out there. And so I think it's important to look at AI development elsewhere because it will eventually trickle down to L&D. An example I use here is a self-driving shuttle bus in South Korea. What are some of the limitations this bus has? What are some of the impacts this bus is having in the city itself? And how is it impacting urban planning and urban design? These are things that would eventually come to us because think about the technology it uses. It's cameras and sensors, right? And route optimization. And perhaps that would happen. Sensors might become a thing when we're using it in L&D. I don't know exactly the type of applications that are useful. I know that there are classrooms that use sensor to kind of detect students if they're paying attention. Again, that might become a surveillance issue, but these things are being implemented in education as well. So it is very important that we look beyond our own field to understand the AI development elsewhere, because it will come to us. And then a key area number 5 is ethics. This is something that's very, very close to my heart, and I think we're getting more, we're paying more attention on ethics, but it's still often overlooked and undermined. And ethics is it includes multiple issues here, and that's not even the complete listing. It could be transparency, do we know we're using, do we know our data being collected? Is it transparent? Did you know these violated our privacy? Are there biases in data sets? Are we being discriminated against because AI systems perhaps inadvertently discriminate certain groups of people? Are we being datafied? Are there copyright issues? Are human being exploited in the name of labeling AI data? Environmental concerns, as you know, AI takes up a lot of water and electricity, and also some rare minerals are being mined to build AI models. And also, who's responsible and be accountable for all these issues? It's all part of AI ethics. One issue that makes the news, if you haven't heard about this MIT researcher who says she has to wear a white mask, a physical mask, in order for facial recognition technology to see her face. So this actually has become a book called Unmasking AI. If you have never heard of it, I highly recommend you read it, just so that we know not just the limitations, but perhaps the danger of AI when there are so many limitations and ethical issues that we need to think about. And key area 6 is AI pedagogy. As we use AI tools for teaching and learning and development, we need to think about how do we, instead of having the tools to drive us, how are we going to use the tools to essentially serve us and serve our purposes? I don't know if you guys been around as long as I have, but I think a lot of us have learned our lessons with learning management system, for example, LMSs. LMS's limitation is that it kind of forces you to think about learning as a course, right? The system it's designed to host courses. So everything we created for learning purposes is in a course format because the tool itself, it's designed that way. So it limits our thinking in that sense. It's same with particularly storyline or PowerPoint presentation. It makes us think about everything in a landscape format. It makes us, I mean, I'm guilty of that because I'm also using PowerPoint here. It also makes you think about presentation in bullet point format because the tool, had built-in templates that make you use it, or it influence the way you think about presentation that way. So as we're learning and picking up new AI tools for education and learning, like what are some assumptions and what are some principles these tools are based on? What assumptions are they making? Are we being influenced by it? Are we changing the way we design learning because the tools are influencing us, or are we able to influence the tools and say, well, these tools are limiting in this way, but that's not what my learning initiatives needs to be about. So I think be more mindful and thoughtful about the way we design learning, and not let these tools to shape us. I encourage you to join a community or two in having conversations about how AI is impacting learning. Just a quick search on LinkedIn, for example, there's several groups on AI and L&D. And feel free to share in the chat if you guys are already in groups that you recommend, or any resources do you think it's useful. Feel free to share. And I also am happy to chat, after the conversation, after the talk, to, share some of the resources I use as well. So in terms of the new area called assessment, I had previously folded that into AI pedagogy, but I had since separated it into a new key area because I think it's becoming a bigger conversation and a newer area of concern. I use this image here to illustrate the point about this area because this image had won an art award, even though it was AI generated. But the artist argued that he actually put in hundreds of prompts to create this image. Therefore, his process is art. So my question to you is, as more and more AI generated outputs are out there, how do you show your effort? How do you show your involvement in the final product? And how do you evaluate that effort, right? As people are doing jobs and tasks along with AI, how do you evaluate, how do you separate the, who's doing what, and how do you evaluate the quality within that? And both in a formative and a summative ways. Can you even tell the difference between like human efforts and AI generated efforts? This is, again, it's an evolving conversation. I really don't have all the answers for it, but we start developing some framework for evaluating performances and learning, and also we have to think about assessment as a separate piece. How do you, assess the process? Should process be part of the deliverables? So that's my current thought on this topic. Again, feel free to, if you have a difference on opinion or different take on this.
I have some real thoughts on that, Stella.
You want me to go back to the previous slide?
Yeah, please, if you could do. So the one of my favorite tools at the moment is a tool called GPT-0, which is fabulous. You can paste in text into it, and it will tell you what the percentage likelihood is that text was produced by a large language model, irrespective of whether it be Poe or ChatGPT or whatever. It's a super tool, and you can paste stuff in there, and it will help pick out specific phrases where it's recognizing that mean and commonality, which is something we were talking about beforehand, where stuff's being averaged. And I think that it's a really difficult one for people who work in this assessment space. Where do we, how do we check and test that it's the individual and we spoke about this before, the creative thinking, the critical thinking, rather than just the machine in itself?
Yeah, I think at universities, for example, in writing classes, professors are start asking students to submit multiple drafts, right? Just to see how their thinking behind an essay develops over time. And so perhaps that is something that we would also do in other areas of our lives. It's like to almost, look under the hood as you go and think about, this is my thinking up to this point, and that's my reasons behind that, right? Like you have to perhaps have, explain your reasons more so than ever, instead of saying, here's the finished product, I've done this project. It's that you have to unpack the process now, and each of this.
I think we had, I think we've got an opportunity. This is where we can use these AI tools in a really interesting way. So asking them to develop a marking or assessment rubric that would identify where AI is being used, I think is one way. To identify how you would find the individuality. So how would it recognize, I think, is that there's ways we can use some of the tools to do this. And something that I like doing is comparing, say, what the Claude response is to what the ChatGPT response is, and then putting both of those responses through Gemini and saying, okay, so now how does this look, and so on, and actually using the tools to to draw out some of that individuality. And I think that's a way forward for us now, until we get to the next iteration of the
I know, until a new tool comes in and it erases everything else.
Until another one comes along.
Yes. But that's why it needs to be an evolving conversation, right? It needs to be a framework that it's not locked down, because as these things change, my assumptions about things change too, and perhaps the rubrics and methods that I implement today, it needs to be updated, or sometimes even throw it out the window and start from scratch again if something drastic happened.
And a fabulous comment from Joachim. We don't evaluate it's AI or human, you evaluate outcome and impact, which is what I was talking about on Tuesday. So from an assessment perspective, we need to rethink the assessment based on what happens as a result of doing it, rather than the just doing it in the first place, which I think is absolutely spot on, Joachim. So superb, absolutely. And as Akozu says, what we need to do is shift our thinking about what the work is that we're assessing, I think, which is really important.
I mean, so many
Thank you. I just wanted to dive in at that point.
So no, please dive in. Sorry, Andrew, I just realized you actually asked if you can join it. Please just jump in. I missed even your question about if you can come in. Of course you can join anytime, just interject anytime. But I think
it's what I'm interested in.
No, it's awesome. I feel lonely just seeing me here. Me and AI. But I think it's also that we have to rethink about the nature of job, which is very beautifully lead to the next and the final area is about future of work. It's not just about the future, right? It's now. Like, what is it about our jobs that we do now, or tasks within the job we do, that even could be automated and replaced, like and perhaps some of that should be automated, perhaps some of that were not meant to be for humans to start with, like some of the heavy duty lifting jobs, like it's high risk, and maybe those are better off that are being replaced. But then what do we need to do to still maintain the human quality of our work? What different skill sets do we need to have? But also looking in not just the future, but to think about the past as well, and think about each technological disruptive cycle, what had happened, even though it happened over a longer period of time. it's still there are lessons to be learned. There's still things to think about that apply to the current situation. So the future of work is to kind of look into the past and what we can learn from these disruptions, and then looking into the future and see how can we prepare better for it. What different skill sets do we need to have, and what needs to be implemented now, not just for L&D, but I think it's for the entire organization and also at the country level, to think about. Governments are also thinking about the future of work, and at a country level, what can we do about that collectively? So that's my framework in a gist. Along with the key areas, the 8 key areas, I also created measurable and observable competencies. Again, this is ever changing as well. The last time I updated this was in August, and I'm already like changing it a little bit in terms of the terminologies, in terms of the levels. So I created 3 levels of competencies to kind of help us assess and evaluate where we are in terms of AI literacy. So together, there's 72 competencies at 3 levels. And feel free, again, to look at that document in its entirety. It's on my website for free. So how can I apply the AI literacy framework? I've been doing a couple projects on that. Well, more than a couple projects, but just 2 that I wanted to share with you today. One is to use this framework and the competencies as a self-assessment and reflection tool. I recently partnered with LP Plus, Learning Possibilities. It's a company in the UK, EdTech. They mostly work in the NGO space, to kind of put my framework into a platform. They call it Oasis. It's to assess, to answer a bunch of questions on each of the key areas. And as you see, they changed the key areas slightly differently to fit into the system, because we were doing this project as a prototype for Asian Development Bank, and they wanted these areas to map to the existing framework for teacher competencies. And so so you go through a series of questions, and then at the end of it, it gives you a self-reflection assessment report to say this is where you're at in terms of your competency for this key area. And within that, it also gives you a score, but also give you level up tips on where, how do you, upskill in this competency? How can you improve? How can you learn? What can you do to get better at it? So it gives you, it's a tool that helps you assess, but also to help as a development plan if you wanted to further develop your AI literacy understandings. And the second project I've been working on is a mini course. We just piloted this in October 15th in partnership with Athabasca University. It's an open university here in Canada, on an introduction to AI literacy based on, again, the framework. This was designed for graduate students in Canada, but since it's a pilot, we're just gathering feedback and testing, and with the plan to expand it beyond graduate students and beyond Canada. So if you're interested in perhaps joining the pilot for the next iteration, drop me an email or send me a message on LinkedIn after, and I'll make sure I add you to the list. So these are the 2 projects that we've been working on based on the AI literacy framework and beyond. So just to wrap up here, I want to end with something positive. And Fei Lee is a prominent AI person in this field, and she said that artificial intelligence is not a substitute for human intelligence. it is a tool to amplify human creativity and ingenuity. And I think that pretty much captures why we want to develop AI literacy and why we need to keep this focus as we move forward. So that's everything. Please connect with me, and I'd like to open up the floor if there's any conversations or discussions that we can have. So Andrew, back to you.
Fabulous, Stella. I have just pasted into the chat your lingering questions quote, and I've also just pasting into there now the feedback as well. So for people to give feedback on your session, there's a couple of questions. I've got questions, but I'm going to ask the questions at the audience.
Go for it.
You know, that's my job. I have to do that first. So Anne has asked about the dislike of the term AI.
Yeah.
And it's everyone's calling everything AI right now, and AI is the buzzword kind of thing. You know, she says, what would you call it instead? How would we label it instead? Do we need to change what it's labeled? I think there's something perception-wise. If you call something AI, people will spend money on it. So it gets called AI for that purpose. But how do we frame it differently now?
Well, I think it's just troublesome with the term intelligence because of, perception that it has a mind of its own. And it isn't. It's a dumb machine. I don't know. It's really. I think that the origin of AI was problematic, and that's why it's even the origin of AI. They created this term to differentiate from cybernetics research, because apparently they can get more funding, right? It's a new term, and then it's sexy, and people kind of get it, and it sounds very powerful, and so it stuck. I don't think. I think it's too late to change it. I think what we can do is to unpack the term and understand the nuance behind it. I think it's important to have conversations, and that's why we have this conversation today about what's AI literacy. Well, start with what's AI, and to understand. I think it's more powerful to give it a definition so that it puts it in its place. Essentially, it's a statistical model, but that's not sexy. That's not going to get you funding. That's not going to get you people to pay for it. But I think understanding what AI is, understanding its limitations, and it's like a car is not magical. There's an engine underneath that. I think we need to understand, like, this car is not a magic carpet that flies, right? Same with AI. It's not that it's magic. It appears to be because it uses natural language processing. It appears to be that I'm talking to an intelligent, sentient being because it mimics my way of talking. So I think it's just, the first step is just give it a definition, and the second is to raise awareness about this term, and that's all we can do. At least that's all I can do at this point.
Awesome. Question from Alistair. If we ask AI tools to check levels of AI for us, how do we know? How do we check they're correct? This is a very meta kind of question, isn't it? Is that if we're relying on AI tools to check stuff for us, at what point do you stop? How many degrees of AI are acceptable? I think it's an interesting question. I don't know whether we can answer it, but what are your thoughts on that?
There was an interesting article that came out, I think, was it last year? They say eventually AI is going to collapse the internet because it's going to keep, churning the same information. There's some research on currently what's the percentage of content on the internet that's generated by AI. Last I checked, again in August, so that might have changed. It's 11%, and that's scary because this number is going to increase exponentially. I don't have an answer for it, but I think we need to be mindful that we can't, AI output sometimes are quite terrible and it's full of mistakes. And so as it gets, as people understand more of that, I think we might go back to, well, maybe this is more time consuming to use it. Maybe I should create my own output. I don't think we should ask AI to check in a loop, because it's gonna, regress to the mean, and it's gonna get worse. It's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Is what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, that's a good point. Question from Andrea. I think this is a super question. At the rate that tech is progressing, how do you think, or how relevant do you think the tool that you've designed and this framework will be in 2 to 3 years' time?
Oh, I mean, this came out, like, my framework came out a year and a half ago. I already changed it twice. So just to give you an idea of how much I mean, you have to just treat it like a living framework and living document. I also leverage my network heavily. I show it to everybody to say, well, use, adapt, use, adjust, feel free to shape it to whatever way you need to. I think the foundational literacy won't change much, because if you think about the iteration of literacy we've gone through digital literacy, right? We've gone through media. Before that, there's media literacy, and then there's data literacy. And now we have AI, which it's a continuation of building on, up to this one. Like, critical thinking, it's not going away. We had fake images in the 1900s or before that, since beginning of time, really. As long as humans been around, we lie about things, right? So we can't take things at face value. That's a fact. That's something that's constant. We need to think about. We need to be prepared for the changing future of work. That's not going to change. The content itself, how do you go about doing it, the exact terminology, those things will change.
Yeah. And what I think is interesting, so looking at the framework, you could take away AI out of it, and you could put evaluation in there, the stuff that I've been talking about. You could put data in there. You talk about data fundamentals, data fluency, critical thinking and fact checking is a data issue. Diverse use cases is data ethics, exactly the same. So I think the questions are the right question, but it's exactly as you say. It's moving all the time, because the things themselves aren't static, which I think is superb.
Yeah, and I think with AI, it has its own unique functions and features. So we need to kind of, put that in there to say, well, what's different about AI? I think that's the question. That's the layer, right? Like all the literacy areas. Yes, it's the same with, if you look at, you substitute data, but then we need to put this layer to say, well, how is AI different? How is, do they have new sets of challenges? Does it introduce a new sets of limitations? Does it introduce a new sets of problems? I think those are the issues that we need to be mindful of. It sits on top of any literacy.
Yeah. Cool. And we didn't get to my question, so there we go. Because it's the audience, you see. It's always
stick it in there.
The audience themselves, you see. I'm just loving the chat and the conversation. The conversation in the chat has been absolutely outstanding. Again, it comes down to how people do this with these sessions. The feedback, you said ask for feedback. Guess what everybody's doing? Everybody's saying thank you. Everyone's saying that they really enjoyed it, Stella. Please do say in the chat, explain in the chat as to what you've got from this. Excuse me. Really important for Stella, so she knows that she's on the right path with stuff. And please do connect with Stella as well. Her email address was on the previous slide. If you scroll back 2 minutes, you'll be able to see it, and also her LinkedIn details. Please do connect and say that you're coming from the Autumn Forum as well, because then she knows where you're coming from as well, which is really, really important. Thank you, Stella. That was absolutely outstanding, and I'm going to message you separately the 3 questions that I've got for you. Because
I was going to ask you. We can always have another separate conversation, Andrew. I always have time for you. Don't worry. And thank you for being an awesome facilitator.
I try. It's because I've got such great guests. You see, I've just got such great guests. Awesome. Thank you, Stella. Thank you very much indeed. And like I said, thank you to everybody who's been with us for the Learning Technologies Autumn Forum for the last 2 weeks. We've come to the end. This was session 15. This was, or the code we call it, LT4S4. you'll be pleased to know. LT4, day 4, session 4. It's been a brilliant 2 weeks. There's been so much good stuff. I have got some brilliant stuff that's banging around inside my head as the things that I want to take forward from this. We have to say thank you to the from Closer Still, so all of the people at Closer Still and the Learn Technologies group who have put all together all of these sessions together. I want to say thank you to the people who helped me do some of the administration stuff for this. So I've got people who work with me, so Natalie who works with me, and there are other people who have done an enormous amount of work. Our new chairs, we've had new chairs this year who've chaired for the first time. You wouldn't know it by the quality of the chairing we've had from some of the people with us. So it has been absolutely superb. Somebody asked earlier, one of the sessions recorded. They'll be available on the site from tomorrow, and they will stay on the site indefinitely until the site gets closed down. You can go back and look at last year's videos if you want, for example. So you've got time to go back and make sure you connect with all the speakers as well, because it's really good for speakers to get feedback. But massive thank you to everybody for being here. We'll see you again in a few weeks' time when the Learning Technologies when we're doing the Learning Technologies webinar series, which are coming back. If you go to the Learning Technologies website and look up the digital library, you'll see the ones that we've done previously and the future ones that we're going to be doing. But as it ticks over to 5 p.m. in the UK, it's time for me to go. So thank you, everybody. Really, really well done. And we'll see you all again soon. So take care, everybody.
Thank you.